Are you wondering how Vault Gear Modifiers work? Well, if that's the case, this video is right for you. I'm going to assume you already have some knowledge about Vault Gear because I'm going to be mainly focusing on what the modifiers do and on what type of gear you can get them. First, let's have a look at armor. Every piece of Vault armor has the same implicit modifiers. Armor in points, which count towards defense, durability, which means how long it's going to last, and critical hit resistance, how likely you are to take normal damage from an attack that's supposed to deal more damage. Moving on to the prefixes. More get unlocked and have a chance of appearing on your gear as your Vault level increases. Therefore, between level 0 and 5 there is armor, which adds up to the 1 from the implicit modifier, then there is health, 2 health points add 1 extra heart, and lastly there is mana, which increases max mana levels. From level 6, increased damage is added, which increases your base weapon damage by a certain percentage. From level 12, you can roll healing efficiency, which amplifies your healing by a certain percent. For example, here the healing efficiency is 22%, so if I were to heal for 100 health, with the 22 healing efficiency I would heal for 122 health instead. From level 17, resistance is added, which increases damage reduction by a certain percent, so it basically lowers how much damage you take from incoming attacks. From level 40, block chance is added, which means that you have a certain chance to not take damage from an incoming attack. It works like a passive shield. This prefix is only available on chest plates. Other pieces of armor don't have it. From level 41 you get mana, but in the form of a percent, which does the same thing as point mana increase, but instead of increasing it by a fixed number, it scales off of it. From level 55, critical hit resistance is added, same as the implicit, and they scale together. Another important detail, health and healing efficiency can't be rolled together on the same piece of gear. Same applies to resistance and increased damage. Let's move on to suffixes. Between level 0 and 10, you can roll Soulbound, which means if you die in the Vault while wearing your armor, you get to keep it. Then there's Thorns chance, how likely you are to deal Thorns damage to attackers. Next is item quantity, which increases the loot you find in chests. Then there is item rarity, which increases the rarity of items found in chests, so you are more likely to get rarer items in Vault chests. And last, there's knockback resistance, which decreases the knockback you take from attacks. From level 10 you can roll mana regen, which doesn't do anything to your base mana levels, it just makes it so that you get mana faster based on the percentage of the modifier. From level 11 you can roll durability, which stacks with the implicit modifier. From level 11, trap disarming is added, which decreases the likelihood of not triggering a trapped chest by a certain percent. From level 20, cooldown reduction is added, which decreases the cooldown for your skill by a given percent. From level 45, 3 new suffixes get added: poison avoidance, wither avoidance, and slowness avoidance. All of them scale as percentages and cannot be rolled together. And that's it for suffixes. And with that, we are done with modifiers for armor pieces. Now let's talk about weapons. There are 2 options you can choose between: an axe or a sword. The modifiers are the exact same except for one prefix. So let's start with the implicits. There is attack damage, how much damage you deal, then there is attack speed, and lastly there is durability. For the prefixes, you start off with quite a few. There is attack damage, point system like the implicit, and they stack together. Then there's stunning, this is a percent and represents the likelihood of you staggering an enemy. Next is spiteful, which increases damage against pillagers only. There's also baneful, which is like Bane of Arthropods, and so it increases damage against spiders. Almost last is holy. Similar to smite, it lets you deal additional damage to undead mobs like zombies. Spiteful, bane, and holy can't be rolled at the same time on the same weapon. And last but not least, the modifier that's specific to axes is called cleave range. This means that you will hit all mobs in a radius of 1 or 2 blocks around you. As for swords, you have sweeping hit chance, which increases the chance to get a sweeping attack. From level 5, chaining is added, which lets you hit multiple mobs at the same time. So for each level of chaining, it hits another mob close to the one you're attacking for 50% of your damage. You cannot roll chaining, attack damage, and stunning at the same time on the same weapon. They exclude each other. From level 6, increased damage is added as a % modifier. From level 13, you can roll fatal strike damage, which increases the scaling damage dealt while landing a fatal strike. Moving on to suffixes, these are the same for both axes and swords. Between level 0 and 10, you can roll Soulbound, which lets you keep the weapon if you die in the vault. Next is Healing or Poison Cloud, which both trigger either a cloud that heals you or a cloud of poison that poisons the mobs around you. You can only have one of these modifiers or any weapon, not both at the same time. And last, there is attack speed in the form of a %. From level 11, durability is added, which scales with the implicit roll. From level 13, fatal strike chance is added, which increases the chance of landing a fatal strike. From level 22, soul chance is added, which increases soul shard drop rates from mobs, sort of like looting but only for shards. Next we have shields. For implicit modifiers, they only have durability and block chance in the form of a %. Between level 0 and 16, there are two prefixes, health as point system and thorns damage %. From level 17, resistance is added, which is the same as for armor. From level 40, block chance is added, which stacks with the implicit modifier. And from level 55, you can roll critical hit resistance, which works the same way as it did for the armor. As for suffixes, between level 0 and 10 there are 6 modifiers: Soulbound, knockback resistance, and 4 different types of clouds. There is healing, wither, slowness, and weakness. These trigger their respective effects and either heal the player or deal damage to mobs. Only one of them can be rolled on each shield. From level 11, durability is added, which stacks with the implicit modifier. And from level 45, 3 other suffixes are added: poison, wither, and slowness avoidance. They can't be rolled at the same time, only one per shield. And the last Vault Gear for today with modifiers is Totems. They all have the same modifiers except for the affinity implicit, which is specific for each god. The other implicit is durability. For the time being, they don't have any prefix modifiers, only suffixes. So, between level 0 and 5, there is mana and points, which increases your base mana. Then there is immunity, which can be for weakness, wither, hunger, slowness, mining fatigue, poison, or time acceleration. What this does is it completely negates these effects as long as you have the idol equipped. Then there is wither, slowness, and weakness cloud. You can only have one cloud modifier for each totem. From level 10, mana regen is added. From level 11, durability is added, which scales with the implicit roll. From level 13, fatal strike chance is added, which is the same thing as for the weapons. From level 19, trap disarming is added, which increases the chance of not triggering trapped chests by disarming them. From level 20, haste and speed are added, but they cannot be both rolled on the same totem, and also cooldown reduction. From level 22, soul chance is added, which increases drop rates from soul shards. From level 24, reach is added, which gives you the ability to mine blocks further away. And from level 41, mana in the form of % is added. And with that, these are all the modifiers for now. They might change in time, or some of the effects might get modified, but for the time being, this is how things are. I hope you find it helpful, and consider subscribing if you want to see more Vault Hunter guides. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.